This is going to be a contest for whose voice is the lowest.
I know.
We sound terrible.
Yes.
Great day to do a podcast, huh? 'Tis the season, friends.
It's better now than it was at 7 o'clock this morning.
We warmed up. You're listening to Leedom to Life, where it's our prerogative to explore what it means to be authentically human and fully alive. We have far more questions than answers, but believe that extraordinary answers can be found in the ordinariness of a journey. I'm your host, Emily Leedom. Hello, friends, and welcome to this episode of Leedom to Life. Happy Advent. I hope the start of your Advent is off to a wonderful journey. I am excited for the next couple of weeks together on Leedom to Life, just to continue to dive more deeply into this season and in preparation for Christmas. Tony, Menke, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
What was the title of the episode that you did first last season? Suffering, something?
It had something to do with suffering.
Something to do with suffering.
Why we suffer, or I don't know. Something around suffering.
I'm sure it was a very catchy title.
Yes.
That I came up with, but
100%.
That's not coming to me right now. But that was your first debut on Lead 'em to Life, and now you're back. But for people that haven't met you before or didn't hear that episode, give us an introduction to who you are, my friend.
Wonderful. Well, my name's Tony Menke. I'm originally from St. Paul, Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
Been here in Sioux Falls now for about 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
I am married to a wonderful woman, Carrie Menke, and 4 kids: Xavier, Colette, Avila, and Rose, ranging from 8 to almost 2.
Mm-hmm.
And then I currently serve as the Director of Diocesan Relationships with the Fellowship of Catholic University Students, Focus. But as of next month, I'll be taking a new position in which the title is COO of the Catholic Community Foundation of Eastern South Dakota.
Whoop, whoop. You're going to be in the building.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm very excited.
2 questions.
Please.
Tell me the single greatest reason that you decided to stay in Sioux Falls.
I mean, clearly the single greatest reason, not the only reason, but the greatest reason is your friendip.
Oh,
and Matt's
exactly.
friendship.
Thank you. That's what I thought.
100%.
Thought that it was going to be. Yeah, 100%. Matt and I.
100%.
And second question, I know that that's not actually it, but until my dying day, I'm going to claim that.
No,
Can I do that?
No,
Are you okay with
100%.
that?
I mean, again, the reason why we moved initially.
And like Matt and I talk about this. We're the reason that the Menkes decided to stay.
The reason for the move was definitely be close to Carrie's family.
Right.
And just the opportunities that provided. But the thing that keeps us here is community.
Yeah.
And you guys are a critical piece to that puzzle of like community and friendship, and surrounding ourselves with people that can help us grow and help us, our family, to continue to move in the direction that we were created for, and to give our kids the best opportunity to be the sons and daughters of God that they're called to be. Yeah. And if that didn't exist, then it's nice to be close to family, but that's a critical piece that we needed, and we know we need. And you are a big piece of that.
The connectivity is just a game changer.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think even, so we claim you, and then I think we're going to start claiming the Van Deests as well. I mean, not the fact that she got an awesome job working here as a doctor or whatever. Like, it's for sure.
Minor things.
It's for sure the men's group. It's for sure the Leedoms.
Yes, 100%.
But no, I think actually, like, in just making people feel at home, or that experience of home, so much of it is just the connectivity to other people, to feel like you're in a place where you're known, where you're cared for, where you kind of have a support system in place. Like, all of those things just make you feel more secure, more stable, more rooted, I guess, is what kind of comes to my mind.
Yeah, and we both Carrie and I have had experiences in our life where we had that and where we didn't have that. And so to have those experiences and to know that difference, we were able to step into it when we moved into Sioux Falls, as we settled in and as we kind of got our bearings, to say, this is a priority. And it took sacrifice, it took intentionality, but we knew that priority because of our past experiences and what was there and what wasn't there.
Okay, one more question before we get to the actual topic.
Please.
When you didn't have that support system in place, what was the effect of that on your marriage for you and Carrie? Did you? Because I feel like I've heard some people say that it actually, like brings them closer together because they have nobody else. And then I think for other people, they've said, "Oh, it's just a real challenge because we didn't have anybody like rooting for us," kind of thing. What would you say? Maybe it's not one or the other. Maybe it's ups and downs.
I think there's both.
Okay.
I think it obviously it gives you opportunities to invest in each other. And so I think there's benefits as far as our marriage and just as us as a couple. The thing that's lacking that I felt, and I think, Carrie would say the same, is that just as being a man, like I didn't have those people in my life to challenge me, to encourage me, to be examples for me on how to live that out. And as much as I love my wife is a woman.
Yeah.
And
you needed a Matt Leedom.
I needed a Matt Leedom.
And Matt Leedom needed Tony Menke.
And
Look
so,
at that.
and I think that's where that disconnect comes. I think that's where it's felt. And so that was really good for our marriage, and it was really good for our family and time with our family and stuff like that. I think I was missing something as far as being the man, husband, and father, because I didn't have that behind me, and I didn't have that next to me. And so that's where I think the biggest miss was.
Yeah, the essential, that's the essentialness, the essentiality, the essential nature. What's the word I'm looking for? Of community.
Yes.
Like that's there's a word. That's going to bug me all day. But I think somebody's screaming it at me in their car right now listening to this. But yeah, that's what community life does. Like it helps us, it witnesses to us more of who we desire to be and encourages us, I think, in that way, which is so beautiful. Okay, so like you said, you're kind of in a time of transition right now. Next month, you're going to be taking on COO of the Catholic Community Foundation for Eastern South Dakota. So you're kind of in a time of transition, and that's actually one of the reasons that I initially wanted to talk with you at the start of Advent when I had asked you, is because we're really entering into this time of transition. It's a new liturgical season. Happy New Year. Happy new liturgical season.
You too.
And so we're just really in this beautiful place of kind of experiencing this firsthand. But then furthermore, just as we enter into Advent, wanted to have a bit of a conversation about that, what that means, what that looks like, and specifically, I think, surrounding almsgiving. Which is something that's been kind of on my heart, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But first of all, I'd love for you, I often forget that Advent is a penitential season.
Yes.
Like I'm ready to party when Advent comes around, and I just need to rein it in, story of my life. But can you talk a little bit about why Advent is a penitential season, or what that even means, just to get us started?
Yeah. I think Advent always is meant to, and I think this is very evident within the scriptures at Mass. It's very evident that there's kind of a dual purpose to Advent. One is recognizing the birth of our Lord and that celebration and Christmas, and that's obviously the one that gets the commercials and it gets the limelight. But it's also understanding that He's going to come again, and there's a second coming to it. And so it's to help us to have a season to remind us, are we prepared for that? And even if you look at the readings for this last Sunday, that's what it was about. And it didn't shy away from that reality of He's coming, and are you ready? Are you prepared? And so I think that's where the penitential piece is because most people, if not everyone, if honest, would say, I'm not. In some way, shape, or form, I'm not. And to look at this, and in Lent, it's a little bit easier too because you're moving towards the crucifixion.
Right.
In Advent, it gets lost because, again, the birth of our Lord is such a joy and triumph that we lose the fact that there's a dual purpose, and that purpose is to remember that He's going to come back and He's going to have a second coming, or we're going to meet Him before that,
Right.
and so to spend that time to think through, what are those ways that I need to be detached from this world? What are those ways that I'm falling short in prayer, in almsgiving, in charity, in love, and these things that I'm created to be a son of God or a daughter of God? Am I living up to that identity? Am I living up to that relationship? Or am I getting lost within the chaos that this world provides constantly?
All the time. And that really, I mean, you just said it, but that was 100% the gospel this past weekend. And I like, by a series of graceful events, had just some extra time to like sit with the gospel this weekend. And I just was super, I was super convicted. And what was it? Something, the line about like, caught up in the anxieties of day to day. Like, don't
Yes.
be caught up, in the anxieties of day to day, and not have the courage to stand before God at the end, at the end of the age or whatever. It's like, oh man. And here I am, like, complaining about the 8 million loads of laundry that I did this weekend or whatever it was. And just this real, like, it kind of pulled me out of myself and reminded me exactly what you're talking about, that, hey, this isn't just in preparation for Christmas. Like, there's going to be an end. And are we ready? So you kind of mentioned attachments or becoming more detached from the world. Practically, what can that look like? Like, what comes to your mind when you're thinking, all right, Advent, this time of preparation, like, what are some things that I just need to detach myself a bit from?
Yeah, my temptation always is to go extreme with sometimes like in detaching, and so I'll say I listen to a talk from a Catholic speaker talking about the attachment to our phones or attachments to social media or whatever it is, and it's a great talk and it's super motivating. And then I delete every app that I have on my phone. And then 2 weeks later, they all magically appear back, and so
How'd that happen?
exactly. And so part of what I try to do for my own sake is say, hey, how can I take small steps? Like, what are those small things I can do? Whether it's, hey, I'm going to put my phone down from 5 o'clock to 8 o'clock so that I'm intentional with my family. Or I'm going to delete Facebook. It doesn't mean I'm deleting the account. Maybe I'm just deleting the app. And so it takes that temptation away, or it takes that small step. I did listen to a speaker that talked about these small steps one time, and he was like, maybe not have the newest iPhone.
Yeah.
Or maybe not have the newest technology, or whatever those things are, or what are those small steps that we can take and recognize, like, this is something that has a hold on me, or something that I find really important. How can I detach a little bit? How can I step away from that, especially during this season? I think the beautiful thing with these seasons is it gives us time to hopefully form habits,
Yeah.
And in Lent, it's a little bit more with the 40 days, but even 4 weeks, it gives you a really good chunk of time to hopefully form habits and to work through, just like I said,
good.
with the apps. It's usually within 2 to 3 weeks they show up because I hadn't formed the habits. I hadn't formed what I needed to keep those changes in place. That's the beauty of a timeline like this, where it gives you some opportunity to really hopefully get some new routine set in, so that it's a little bit easier to detach, or you can then notice other attachments that maybe you can go after afterwards.
Yeah. And I don't know, it's interesting because as you're talking about that, like, there's two very like concrete things for me that I just really over the weekend even became more aware of as I was like thinking about, oh, hey, Lent is tomorrow, like, what do I want to do for Lent? Because of my lack of preparedness and unorganization, which we've talked about. But there's two things that came to my mind. One was like one of Matt and I's favorite things to do right now is to like have a glass of wine and like sit by the fire, have conversation, whatever, blah, blah, blah. I think I'm going to give up wine for Advent. And I've never really thought about like giving something up for Lent or for Advent in the same way that I do for Lent. But it just was this like real conviction of that whole preparedness and like creating space, not because it's a bad thing, nor because I think that I have like I'm not an alcoholic or something, right? But like it's like, this is a special thing that I love that I like am going to sacrifice. And the thought of that initially made me uncomfortable, which I think I shared with Matt, like kind of led me to the next step of like, oh, that means I actually need to do it. Like, I don't desire that, therefore I probably need to, you know? So that was one of the first things that came to my mind of just like, I need to create space here. And then the second one was just around like spending, and again, not because it's like bad. It's not because it's bad things, but I can get very caught up in like not necessarily the newest technology, but like I've really been pondering like, would I like an Apple Watch? Do you have an Apple Watch?
I do.
Do you like it?
I do.
Do you?
I do.
You're pro. Okay.
I'm pro. I'm pro probably not for the same reasons that some are. I'm a pro because it has an alarm on it that will vibrate my wrist and not wake up my wife if I'm waking up before her.
That's really nice.
So that's really nice. And the maps function vibrates when I'm supposed to take my next turn. And so it takes my eyes off the road less.
Yeah, see, I think I want one.
So those two things are like things that I really, really like about it.
Yeah. Do you like the texting function? This is, I promise I will get back to the topic.
I like the opportunity of like, especially if I'm like in a social thing or if I like a work thing, to be able to, if I get a text, to be able to look quickly and make sure it's not my wife in an emergency.
Yep.
And so not to read it, and it's just less, like, it's less annoying to just look at a watch
and not
rather
carry
than
your phone all around.
Yeah, or taking out the phone.
Fascinating.
And so I like the idea of like, is it carried? No, it's not. Then it can wait.
Then it can wait.
But if it's carry, I want to make sure that there's not an emergency.
I think about that all the time. Or like daycare or something like that. Like that's where my brain goes.
But to be fair, I love Apple Watches, but I think the newest one is Series 7, and I'm still on the Series 3.
Okay. So see, you don't have to have the newest. You just have to have the thing.
It doesn't give me an EKG. But that's okay. I feel like I can do that.
Okay, that's funny. Thank you for your opinion on that because I've been contemplating it. But anyways, the whole reason that I brought it up is because like, those things aren't bad. And like I said, like that might be on my Christmas list this year. Like I think that would be really maybe helpful or whatever. But I can get a little bit too caught up in just kind of like, ruthless spending and again, it's not like, I want to be really careful because I think somebody listening to these things could be like, well, I don't have like this problem or this problem or this problem. It's like, well, right. But the whole like journey, I think, of Advent for us is in the little things. It's like, it's those little steps that you were talking about. It doesn't need to be quit everything. It's where are things that I can tighten up. So for me, like, I'm not going to have, a glass of wine at night or whatever until Christmas. And then how much more fun and festive and celebratory am I going to be able to enter into the Christmas season with? Or, getting rid of some of the spending things. But as I was reflecting on this weekend, sorry for the rabbit hole there, but that was a delightful conversation for me. But I was reflecting on this a bit this weekend that I think especially this time of year surrounding that spending is what's really difficult. Because I was thinking, okay, why am I feeling convicted about this? Well, part of it is because the opportunities to spend are endless right now. Like if I get on my Instagram account, every single one of like my favorite bloggers are posting this sale and this sale and this sale and this sale. And like, like we've bonded about this, that Matt and Carrie like can't pass up on a sale. You and I are a little more like, it's only 20%. If it's 50%, then we'll talk. But I'm like, wow, the opportunities right now and the demands culturally for us on our funds are everywhere. Like it just was really like, kind of stirring in my heart, and the reality that Advent is actually a time of almsgiving. It's actually a time to really like consider and ponder what are we doing with our funds. So I would love to just spend kind of the rest of our time like really talking about almsgiving, what that is, and you and focus. You want to talk about that a little bit because you have like you've worked in this whole almsgiving thing for a while, and now with your new gig too.
Yeah. And again, just to highlight some of the things you said as far as when we look at giving things up or we look at detachment, it's a lot easier to say, what are those bad things that we're attached to? It's a lot harder to say, what are those good things?
Yeah, what are the good things?
And it's not that like you're detaching because it's bad for you.
Right.
It's recognizing, and this season's meant for, to recognize, to see our lives through an eternal perspective
Amen.
instead of a worldly perspective. And on a worldly perspective, it's like these aren't bad things. But on an eternal perspective, they can be. And they can keep us from seeing, like, what's the purpose of this life?
Yeah.
The purpose of this life is to go to heaven and bring as many people with us as we
Yeah.
possibly can.
Yeah.
Like, that's the purpose. And so how can we see that more clearly and live our lives with that intentionality? That's what this stuff does. As far as almsgiving, yes, a little bit of background. So my work with Focus, I've been working with them for 8.5 years. And the entire time I fundraise my income and the entirety of my income. And so it's one of those things where it was a huge hurdle, especially initially when I joined Focus. When I joined Focus, I was married, and we had found out when I said yes to Focus, we had found out we were pregnant with our first just a week earlier. And so it was a very daunting thing to look at fundraising on that perspective.
Uh-huh.
But it's been really grace-filled in a number of ways. You know, it's grace-filled in just seeing the way that God provides and the way that he loves and he cares for us and takes care of us, especially when we give him everything. And within this mission, that's what we did. We gave him everything. One of the other things that I thought was really cool, kind of fitting within this almsgiving, is Focus does a really cool thing. It's not a cool thing, it's an important thing, but it's a really good job of making sure people tithe, even as missionaries, and that was kind of eye-opening to me. I always knew about tithing, and the church asked for 10% to be given of our income, and that was something I always understood. But the idea that I'd fundraise, like I'm receiving tithing, I'm receiving almsgiving, and then
you're tithing,
and I'm tithing that as well, was really cool because it further instilled.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah, it further so it's like, and it's just an encouragement when you build your budget, you start with the 10%, and then you go from there. And even when you set your goal for fundraising, it's within the mindset you're going to be tithing 10%.
Yeah,
and it was awesome because it's not mine. It's not my money, and it's a gift from God, and it's a blessing. And for me to be able to prioritize that and to say, I'm going to continue to give as well, and not recognize I might be less of amount than I hoped for, or I might stretch us a little bit because it might not, we might have some slow months or whatever it might be. It's not mine. And I know that if I give, whether in this world or the next, it's going to come back, and God's always going to outdo us in generosity.
Yeah.
And to be able to see that and to live that has been something that's very influential in my life.
Yeah, no kidding. Talk about giving as a gift, which you've received as a gift.
Yeah.
In the most practical, in the most literal sense of the phrase. Mm-hmm. That's so powerful. What has the role of gratitude played in that, and even in your ability to have that experience be as powerful as it was for you?
Yeah, we had this moment. I can't remember if I said this in my last interview or not, but we had a moment in our first summer that we were fundraising, which was a struggle. Like our first 3-4 weeks, we have about so the way the Focus works is we have about a 6-week period during the summer to kind of fundraise what we need to be able to get to campus on time before the school year starts. And we were about over halfway through it. We just weren't very close to our goal. And it was just a struggle. And I'm so thankful that I was in it with my wife, and we were able to balance each other out and to encourage each other when we had low moments. But it was a struggle. And we had this moment in which we received in the mail, kind of at the lowest point, received in the mail a check from my last job. My last job I had left in May. This was July, and it was a part of a bonus that I was told that I was never going to get, which I understood and had said, that I was leaving, understanding that this was never going to come my way. And there it was. And it was like the perfect amount of money for us to get through that tough time. And that was such a clear piece because this company is not supporting Focus, and that's not the purpose of this check. Like, it just came literally out of nowhere, and that was like that's what switched it for us. Of like, God truly has
Yeah,
us.
he's got this.
He's got this, and that's where I think the gratitude really grew. Is like it. I think we had to have that faith, and we had to grow in that faith and trust in God. And when it was there, I think the gratitude was definitely something that was a really big part of it. I think we've been so thankful for those that have supported us over the years. I think we have somewhere between 70, 80 people that support us in some way, shape, or form, that we pray for every night.
Yeah.
And even within this new position, we don't plan on taking them out of our prayers. We're just so thankful for them. Some really cool people that we never would have met unless this opportunity came about. We're just been so blessed in so many ways. I was just talking to my son, who's 8, just turned 8. When we told him that I was leaving Focus, he literally got choked up. And it happened 3 times, actually, 3 different times, because of what it's meant to us, and the blessings that come through us. And a lot of it does have to do with those relationships that have come through almsgiving and through the growth that's come through that we're so thankful for.
Oh man, that's so humbling. I'm just thinking of Xavier and like his response of being so emotional about it because he's probably felt so loved and has experienced this profound outpouring of love and gratitude for the people that have been like supporting your mission and all of that. Oh man, that's so humbling. Can you talk a little bit? I feel like as you're talking about tithing on the income that you had fundraised, I think of the widow, which was that part of the gospel on Sunday? I can't remember.
It was recent, I know.
But giving out of her poverty. Can you talk a little bit about what it means to give out of our poverty? Because I am very guilty often. I'm like getting real vulnerable on this episode, I feel like. But I'm often really guilty of like, it's easy to give out of my excess. Like, oh yeah, I've got extra groceries. Here you go. Or I've got extra leftovers. Here you go. Or I've got extra this or extra this, extra this. Like, great, easy. Where I think it's a lot more difficult when things are tight or we don't have, the spare, basically, which is really the invitation to give out of our poverty. And Jesus is like, acknowledgement of the widow giving, her whatever peace sent, that there was something more, like her gift was even more meaningful because it came out of her poverty. What does that mean to you? How have you experienced that?
Yeah. I mean, in some ways, the simplest way is we should give until it hurts. It doesn't have to hurt a ton, but we should feel it and we should be sacrificing for it. And what that means and looks like is going to look different from everybody else. One of the things that even like within tithing that I heard someone say one time was figure out what percentage you give and say like it ends up being 4% or 2% or whatever it is, and say, all right, I'm going to give 1% more this year. What does that mean? What does that look like? Yeah. And it doesn't have to mean that I need to make more money so that I can give that 1%. Yeah. It should mean like, hey, this should come out of our alcohol budget, right, or whatever, those things of like, yeah, these aren't like crucial needs for our family. Yep. That we can, go out to eat one less time a week and give that $30, or with inflation, $50.
Yeah, no joke.
To a charity or whatever that might mean. It's something that we should say, yeah, we should feel it.
We should feel it.
And if we don't, then we just have to, that's where I think we examine of like, when we talk about someone's poverty of like that woman, she gave those coins from the little that she had and she felt it. She knew that meant a meal. She knew that meant clothing. That wasn't just entertainment funds or a little less in the savings. That meant something significant to her life. but she knows that she had an eternal perspective
Right.
within that giving,
Right.
as opposed to, and so it's not that, all families should go down to 2 meals a day and give that money away, but it is something where it's like, yeah, like eat out one less time and cook at home, or have a simpler meal, or whatever that might mean. But I think giving out of our poverty is something where it changes us. It changes something, and it makes it really real for us. It's something that we notice, we recognize, and we feel it a little bit. But that little bit of feeling, again, reorients ourselves to that eternal perspective, which is what this is all for.
And I think the fear in it is, what am I going to lose? Or what am I, are my needs going to be met? Or are my children's needs going to be met, kind of thing. But it also just shows us what our attachments are. Like it really, I think it's painful to see our attachments, because we know, like, there's this deep recognition in ourselves, if we're willing to look at it, that the only thing that can satisfy the hunger is God himself, and yet we, like, as humans, we're so quick to try and fill that ache with anything that we can get our hands on. And so when we start to remove some of those attachments, I think it's uncomfortable, because it reveals to us our ache for the infinite, and that, like, that grasping that I think we all kind of have, that we're looking for. And going back to just the reality of this being during Advent, like, part of, I think, Advent is creating the space for the Lord. Like, I was talking to a coworker earlier today, and she was saying that this past weekend she started cleaning out her closets. And I was like, doesn't Advent just make you want to do that? and she just said, oh my gosh, yes. I didn't even, connect that's Advent or whatever, but it really is, like, there is just this desire to make room. And even in a practical sense, like, hey, Santa's coming at the end of the month, like, let's get rid of some toys so that we have space for the new toys. And that's not a bad thing, but, like, I do think that's part of this interior disposition that's happening, is we want to create space, but we also, in creating space, are kind of examining, hey, what are those things that I'm attached to? What are those things that I'm kind of holding on to,
And I think that's one of the important pieces of it, is that space that you're creating. Like, Advent's meant to be that reminder of, hey, he's coming again. Judgment's coming. Are we ready? Are we doing what we need to prepare? It's not supposed to be, hey, these are the 4 weeks that you prepare so that you don't have to the rest of the year. It's to set up those habits, up those things. And that's the thing about tithing that's really cool, is, like, tithing, the easiest way to do it is, like, hey, 10% of my monthly. And that's way it's coming out. And you could do some fun things where it's like, maybe you have like 7% going towards something specific, and that other 3% you look for a charity or something
roulette
for that month. Yeah, whatever it might be. And, like, you can do some neat things. And my parish does, like, a tree in which you can grab ornaments, and on the ornaments is something from a family of need who put their Christmas lists, and the parish fills their Christmas lists for them. And it's beautiful things. And my kids love grabbing an ornament from the tree and to be able to do that. And so Advent and Christmas provides beautiful, awesome opportunities, but we have to be intentional that it's not just a 4-week season for us, but these are things that it changes us in a way that impacts us throughout the year. And this is the starting point, just like it's a starting point to liturgical year.
Yeah.
This is the starting point to a change that we want to make to bring us closer to our Lord.
How would you answer the question, why do people need to give? Do you want context of why I'm asking you that question?
Please.
Because there's a reality that I could be listening to this and be like, meh. Like, no, I'd rather keep it. I'd rather, we're doing good. We need all the income that we have right now. There's not any space for us to give. Like, and I honestly don't really see the fruit of it. I don't really see why it's important. Like, my parish is doing fine. They don't have any debt. My school is doing fine. All of the charities that are kind of close to us, they have money in the bank. Like, I feel like things are tight for us right now. We need to keep our money here. But I think the church recognizes that the human person, like, not just needs to give for the sustaining of the church. Like, that's actually not the reason. It's actually for the good of the human person themselves. There's a need in the human person to give, to give of time, talent, or treasure, or all three. So why do people need to give? That's the context of my question.
I would say people work really hard, oftentimes work really hard for the money that they earn and they receive, from their work or whatever means comes from it. And it's really easy to say, like, I earn this, I deserve this, this is mine, 100%. To do what I want to do with it. And in some ways, and definitely an earthly perspective, that is 100% true. Like, it's what's just when it comes to the world. When we look at our lives through an eternal perspective, which I keep kind of focusing on, we start realizing, like, we can't take it with us. Whatever we achieve monetarily doesn't impact our ability to get to heaven in and of itself, or the stuff that we collect or need, or the opportunity for how many toys our kids have, or whatever those things are, which are good things, and I'm not saying they're bad. But there's a perspective there, and there's a truth there of, like, this is all a gift from God. Us being here is a gift. Us being able to work is a gift. And work, there's a justice to what we earn, but work is an opportunity for us to praise our Creator through working excellently.
Preach.
And use the talents and the gifts that we were given. We didn't earn them.
Which actually brings great joy.
Yeah, and we didn't deserve them in a sense, but we've been given them as a gift, and we use it excellently, and we gain monetary value or other values and stuff within this world, but it's all meant to praise our Lord. It's all meant to get closer to Him, and that's where our fulfillment comes. It's not in how many cars, or if we have a boat, or the toys, or like the opportunities that we have, entertain, whatever they might be. Those are the things that bring us joy. Maybe as kids, when we kind of don't see the world in the way that it truly is, but as we mature, we see the emptiness that can come from those possessions. Be able to have this opportunity to give, and again, you don't have to go to 0 to 10 in the next month or the next year, little by little, to continue to conform our hearts to our Lord. And to say, Lord, this is from you. This is of you. This is because of you. How can I share this with others? And that's where true joy and happiness comes from. Because that's what it means to live as a son and daughter of God within the community and the body of the church, is recognizing its other members and seeing them as brothers and sisters in Christ, to see Christ within them and say, yeah, I would love to help you. This is a no-brainer. But again, it takes some conforming in our hearts. And I think there is lies within our world of this is justly mine, or whatever those might be, that can be small or big lies, that we need to do battle against. We need to fight. And one of the best ways to do that is to give more.
To lay ourselves down.
Yeah.
Oh man, Tony, that was so good. That's so good. Yeah, and really, like, it's joy, like the conforming of our hearts to the will of the Father, to the reality that we are pilgrims in the world, that we can't take it with us, actually brings deep and abiding peace. And when we're chasing this, like, worldly view that this is ours, this is mine, whatever, like, it doesn't actually bring freedom. And to give away, to give of our time, to give of ourselves, actually brings interior freedom, because we know that we're not our own. That is so good. Mm-hmm. That is so good. I'm so grateful. Thank you for just sharing your heart for this. Thank you for sharing your experience, especially it was really, really cool to hear about focus and how this kind of, like, formed you in this worldview that's really, I think, powerful and very contagious and really desirable. So I just really appreciate that. I have one more question for you.
Please.
What's a question that you've been pondering?
I knew this, and I didn't think about this beforehand. So this is going to come unprepared.
because every other question that I threw at you was so prepared today, Tony. By the way, while you're thinking about that, I think this is one of my favorite parts of Leedom to Life. It has been so fascinating to me to hear just what people think of, what their even it shows even their personality of like things that are more fun loving, things that are on topic versus off topic. Like it's actually left me with some really good questions over the years, or over the last 2 years that we've been doing it. So I always really appreciate it.
Here's one that I've pondered recently, and this came from Sunday reading.
Okay.
It was the reading on the talents.
Yep.
You know, someone got 10, someone got 5, someone got 2. The 10 and the 5 doubled it, and they got to keep it, or something along those lines. Maybe it's 5, 3, 1. I don't know. Anyways, talents. The thing that struck me off of that was, what are the talents that God has given me, and how have I invested them? And am I closer to the one that like buried it, or am I closer to the one that fully invested it?
Yeah.
That just said like, no, this is not mine. This is my master's.
Yeah.
And I need to do as much as I can with it.
Yeah.
Because he's entrusted it to me to be excellent within it.
Dang.
And so, yeah, I think there was like, it was kind of like a gut check, and it's still something I'm wrestling with, of like, what does that mean and look like?
Yeah.
What are those talents? And it's not just monetary. It's other things, gifts, it's friendships, it's family, it's
Totally.
Just numerous things. And
Skills,
like walking through
things,
that and say like, hey, how am I using these opportunities that I've had in my life, or these gifts that God has graciously given me to build up the kingdom, to make him known in this world? Am I doing that on a consistent level? Or, you know, I just like lately I've been more tired, you know, and felt a little bit more beaten down. And so it's like, oh man, am I kind of burying my talents in this way?
Oh man, that's so convicting.
So that was one thing that's been pondering.
Man, this
a little
episode
bit.
was painful for me. Not only because I'm like clearly sick, we both sound terrible.
Yes.
But just really good things. Like this was one of my more mellow episodes, but in part it's because there's like some real richness here that I am pondering. And I think that question that you're leaving us with is like a beautiful place to begin, or a place to kind of deepen into whatever stirred in people's hearts throughout listening to this. Is like, am I maximizing my investing the talents, the skills, the gifts that God has given me in every capacity to the maximum glory of God? Woof. This was good, Tony. This was good. I'm so grateful. Thanks for taking the time. Friends,
thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Friends, I hope that you share this episode with someone else. I think this would be a great one for you to listen to as a couple, if you're married or if you're engaged or whatever. But share it with a friend. And I hope that as we enter into this Advent season, part of you making space in your heart will include giving away what God gave in the first place. Share it with a friend. We'll see you next time.